Rain that never ends, nights without sun, deserts colder than ice. These are Earth's most unreal and extreme places. Welcome to one of the strangest and most unforgiving places on Earth, Dowel, Ethiopia. From above it looks like a surreal painting. Pools of acid shimmer in neon green, mineral towers rise like coral from dry land, and steam constantly hisses from cracks in the ground. But don't be fooled by the beauty. This place is Earth's pressure cooker. Located in the Danakil Depression, Dowel sits more than 400 feet below sea level, and holds the record for the highest average temperature ever recorded in an inhabited location. We're talking about a place where the average daily temperature hovers around 94 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Not the summer high, the average. Day or night, it's like standing next to a jet engine. Your skin stings, your sweat dries before it forms, and the air feels heavy with sulfur and heat. And it's not just hot. Dowel is alive. Acidic springs bubble up from the earth. The ground crackles beneath your feet. The vibrant colors, yellows, greens, reds, come from minerals that would be toxic in most other environments. Touching the water here isn't refreshing, it's dangerous. The pH of some pools is nearly that of battery acid. Breathing in the air for too long, it can irritate your lungs. This isn't a place for a hike. It's more like stepping into a sci-fi movie set on another planet. And yet, there was once a small settlement here. In the early 1900s, people came looking for potash, a valuable mineral used in fertilizer. They built huts, worked under the blistering sun, and tried to tame one of the world's wildest spots. But nature doesn't play fair in Dowel. The settlement was abandoned, and today, the wooden remnants of those buildings sit warped and baked, like forgotten relics in a kiln. Dowel doesn't just challenge human endurance, it rewrites the rules of how Earth can look. NASA has studied it to understand what life might be like on other planets. Scientists compare its chemistry to that of Mars, and even some of Jupiter's moons, so when someone says, "It's hot today," they've clearly never been here. Now from one of the driest and hottest places on Earth, let's take you somewhere completely different. Martian-like, a small village tucked into the hills of northeastern India. Here, rain isn't just part of life, it is life. This region gets over 467 inches of rain every single year. That's more than 10 times the annual rainfall of New York City. And when it rains here, it doesn't just drizzle, it pours. Sheets of water fall from the sky for days, sometimes weeks without a break. People in Martian-like have adapted in clever ways. Houses are built with thick slanted rooftops made of dense grass to muffle the sound of the rain. Children use massive banana leaves as umbrellas. And forget regular umbrellas, they don't stand a chance. During the peak of the monsoon season, locals barely see the sky for months. Roads flood, rivers swell, and fog rolls in so thick you can't see 10 feet ahead. What makes it rain so much here? It's all about geography. Martian-like sits right at the edge of the Meghalaya Plateau, directly in the path of warm, moisture-heavy air coming from the Bay of Bengal. As that air slams into the mountains, it rises, cools, and unleashes torrents of rain in concentrated bursts. It's a natural setup for non-stop downpours. The result? A village that lives inside a cloud for much of the year. And the strangest part? The surrounding region can be bone dry just miles away. It's like Martian-like was handpicked by the sky to be Earth's ultimate rain collector. Now shift your focus to Greenland, where weather doesn't just change, it whiplashes. At Summit Camp, a remote research station sitting over 10,000 feet above sea level on the Greenland ice sheet, scientists have witnessed some of the fastest and most extreme temperature swings ever recorded in the Arctic. In just a matter of hours, temperatures here have jumped by over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, going from extreme sub-zero cold to sudden near freezing. That might sound mild compared to the extremes elsewhere, but in the Arctic that kind of jump is massive. It's like going from deep freeze to spring in a single afternoon, only without the flowers. These shifts are tied to strange polar weather events, including rare atmospheric rivers, huge bands of warm air and moisture that sweep in unexpectedly. One of the most shocking incidents happened recently when rain, not snow, fell at the camp for the very first time. This isn't some coastal village, this is the top of Greenland. Rain here was unthinkable until it wasn't. The camp itself is a handful of tents and research shelters sitting on a sheet of ice 2 miles thick. Scientists live and work here, tracking the climate, ice melt, and weather patterns that could reshape coastlines worldwide. Every gust of wind, every unexpected warm snap tells a story about a planet in flux. Summit Camp is quiet, white, and vast, but beneath the silence is movement. rapid, wild, unpredictable. Weather here doesn't follow rules, it rewrites them. If you've ever complained about winter, you might want to skip a trip to Oyakon. This tiny village in northeastern Siberia holds the unofficial title of the coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth. How cold? Try 90 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. That's the kind of cold where eyelashes freeze together and your breath turns to ice crystals in front of your face. Despite this, Oyakon is home to a few hundred people who live and work here year-round. Schools only close when temperatures dip below 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Locals drive their cars all day because turning off the engine means it might never start again. Pipes freeze underground, so outhouses are standard. It's not unusual to see someone walking down the road in a fur coat layered over another fur coat, with frost building up on their eyelashes. Why does it get so cold? Oyakon sits in a basin surrounded by mountains that trap cold air like a freezer with the lid shut. Clear skies and still winds let the temperature plummet night after night without interruption. There's no Gulf Stream to warm things up, no major cities nearby, just vast Siberian emptiness that stretches for hundreds of miles. Yet people here don't just survive, they've adapted. Diets are rich in meat and fat, mostly from reindeer and horse. There's no agriculture, so everything has to be preserved or imported. Even cell phones can freeze and shut down after a few minutes outdoors. Oyakon doesn't pretend to be comfortable, but it's real, it's rugged, and it offers a glimpse into how far human endurance can go when life is built around surviving the coldest that Earth can throw at you. Every night, without warning, the skies above Lake Maracaibo explode with light, not from fireworks or city lights, but from nature's own electrical show. This region in Venezuela sees lightning so often, it holds a world record. At its peak, there can be over 280 lightning strikes per hour. That's more than 4 strikes every second, no exaggeration. Locals call it Relampago del Catatumbo, or the Catatumbo lightning. It happens near the mouth of the Catatumbo River, where warm, humid air from the Caribbean meets cold winds from the Andes Mountains. That clash creates perfect conditions for non-stop lightning storms, especially at night. And it doesn't just happen in the rainy season. This natural light show appears nearly 300 nights a year, often lasting for 10 hours straight. From afar, it looks like a silent disco in the sky. Brilliant flashes lighting up the clouds, reflecting on the water and illuminating everything in sight. No thunder reaches most observers, just pure light. Pilots once used it as a natural lighthouse to navigate the skies. And it's visible for miles, even from planes flying high above the country. What's even more surprising is that scientists are still studying why this exact spot produces such consistent lightning. The geography, the humidity, the topography, it all lines up to turn this lake into Earth's most electrified hotspot. And yet people live here. They fish, they work, they sleep through the lightning as if it's a lullaby. For them, the storms are just part of life, normal, even comforting. But for the rest of the world, Maracaibo is a living science experiment, a place where the sky never fully goes dark. Antarctica might be covered in ice, but there's a place within it where not a single snowflake falls for years or even centuries. Welcome to the McMurdo Dry Valleys, a frozen wasteland that breaks all expectations. No sand dunes, no cactus, but this is a true desert, by definition and by feel. It's one of the driest places on Earth, receiving less than 0.2 inches of precipitation per year. Now, here's the twist. This desert sits in the coldest region on the planet. Surrounded by glaciers, the dry valleys are almost completely ice-free. Powerful katabatic winds race down the mountains at over 200 miles per hour, so strong they evaporate any moisture before it can settle. Snow can fall, but it doesn't stick around. It gets blasted into the air and disappears, leaving behind nothing but exposed rock and lifeless ground. Walking through the McMurdo Dry Valleys feels like stepping onto Mars. The soil is dry, cracked, and rust-colored. No trees, no grass, barely any visible life. Even bacteria struggle to survive. But strangely enough, scientists have discovered some of the most ancient microbial life forms hiding beneath the rocks or deep in the ice-covered lakes. That's why NASA and other space agencies study this place. It mimics the surface of Mars better than anywhere else on Earth. These valleys are so remote and so untouched, you can look around and know almost nothing has changed for millions of years. There are no towns, no stations, no roads, just cold silence, no wildlife, no birds overhead. Even Antarctica's famous penguins don't come here. McMurdo Dry Valleys are nature's paradox, a bone-dry desert sitting inside a frozen continent. They reveal a side of Antarctica that most people never imagine, a place where water is rarer than ice, and silence is absolute. In the heart of the Sahara, there's a place where the sun scorches by day and the chill bites by night. Welcome to Aoulef, a remote town in southern Algeria that ranks among the hottest places on the planet. Temperatures regularly soar beyond 124 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sun beats down on the sand with such intensity, locals say walking barefoot outdoors can cook the soles of your feet in seconds. What makes Aoulef especially extreme isn't just the heat, it's the wild temperature swings. By night, the same air that baked the desert drops to surprisingly cold levels, sometimes approaching 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That's an 80-degree swing in just a few hours. The dry desert air can't hold heat, so when the sun disappears, so does the warmth. There's almost no shade here, no trees, no tall buildings, just sand, stone, and sun. Streets in Aoulef are often empty during the hottest parts of the day. Locals stay indoors, windows shuttered, waiting until evening when the air cools enough to breathe without effort. It's a life built around the rhythm of extreme weather, sleep when it burns, move when it chills. The Sahara itself is already legendary, but Aoulef takes it up a notch. Sandstorms can roll in with no warning, blotting out the horizon like a wall of smoke. The sky turns orange, visibility drops to a few feet, and when the wind dies down, all that's left is silence and heat rising from the dunes. Despite all this, people live here. Markets open after sunset, kids play under the stars. And water? It comes from deep underground, carefully drawn and used sparingly. Aoulef is proof that even in one of Earth's harshest environments, life can take hold and thrive in its own rhythm. If Earth has a furnace, it's right here in Iran's Lut Desert. This vast, uninhabitable landscape holds the record for the hottest surface temperature ever recorded on the planet. A blistering 199.6 degrees Fahrenheit, measured by satellite. That's not the air temperature, that's the actual ground. Step barefoot on it, and you wouldn't last more than a second. Locally known as Dashti Lut, this desert doesn't just get hot, it stays hot. For years it topped global heat charts as the planet's scorching champion. And it's not hard to see why. The terrain is made of dark volcanic rock and sand, which absorb and trap heat like a blacksmith's forge. Clouds are rare, rain is practically non-existent, and not a single permanent settlement exists within the core of the desert. You won't find much wildlife here. No reptiles, no bugs, no birds. It's so dry and so hot, not even bacteria can survive in some parts. It's a natural oven where life hits a hard stop. But what you will find are some of the most otherworldly landscapes on Earth. Wind-carved ridges, sharp rock towers, and endless fields of sand dunes that look like the surface of another planet. NASA uses images of this place to test instruments for future Mars missions, and it makes sense. The Lut Desert looks alien, feels unlivable, and behaves in ways that baffle even seasoned scientists. One area known as Gandum Berrien, or toasted wheat, got its name after a load of grain was accidentally left there and was later found completely scorched. Yet for all its extremes, the desert is mesmerizing. Waves of sand stretch across the horizon, interrupted only by strange, jagged formations rising from the heat. There's no silence quite like it, no heat that compares. The Lut doesn't just challenge records, it defines them. In the northeastern United States, far from deserts and polar extremes, there's a peak with a reputation that rivals the world's harshest environments. Mount Washington, standing just over 6,000 feet tall in New Hampshire, might not seem intimidating until you reach the summit. Up here, the weather changes in minutes, and the wind, it doesn't whisper, it roars. This mountain once held the world record for the fastest wind gust ever recorded on land, an astonishing 231 miles per hour. That's stronger than most tornadoes. People say being up there during a storm feels like standing behind a jet engine. Even on a clear day, the wind can knock you off your feet, and wind chills plunge well below zero. What causes such madness? It's all about location. Mount Washington sits at the convergence of several major storm tracks, and its shape funnels air upward at incredible speeds. It's like nature designed the mountain specifically to bottle up the atmosphere's chaos and unleash it at the summit. The Mount Washington Observatory is perched right at the top. Researchers live there for weeks at a time, tracking the wind, snow, and cold. They've had to chain down their equipment. Doors are built to open inward only, otherwise they'd blow off. There are days when you can't even go outside without climbing gear, not because you're scaling cliffs, but because the wind could literally throw you down the mountain. This isn't just some winter phenomenon either. Mount Washington's weather is wild all year. It can be sunny and calm at the base while the summit is getting battered by hurricane-force winds and zero visibility. Tourists often visit in summer lured by its views, but even then, it can snow. A clear morning can turn into a whiteout by lunch. That unpredictability is part of the mountain's legend, and why it's earned the nickname home of the world's worst weather. If you're looking for rain in Chile's Atacama Desert, you might be waiting a lifetime. Some parts of this desert haven't seen a single drop in hundreds of years. Welcome to Earth's driest non-polar desert, where the landscape looks more like Mars than anything else on the planet. Seriously, NASA tested its Mars rovers here before sending them off-world. Located along the Pacific coast and flanked by the Andes Mountains, the Atacama is locked in a dry zone. The cold Humboldt Current chills the air coming off the ocean, preventing moisture from forming. At the same time, the towering Andes block any wet air coming from the east. The result? A near-total rain shadow that leaves entire regions in a permanent drought. The ground is cracked and crusted with salt. Valleys are littered with strange rock formations and colorful minerals that haven't eroded in centuries. There are places where scientists have never detected any microbial life in the soil, something almost unheard of on Earth. And yet, scattered across the desert are small towns, observatories, and even ancient geoglyphs carved into the hillsides. It's also a haven for stargazers. With no clouds, no humidity, and almost no light pollution, the skies above the Atacama are among the clearest in the world. Telescopes perched high in the mountains collect data on distant galaxies, all from this lifeless sun-baked terrain. Despite the lifeless look, life does exist here, just barely. You'll find resilient species of lichen, cacti, and flamingos that thrive near rare water sources. The Atacama isn't just dry, it's extreme in every sense, a place where survival feels more like persistence and silence runs deep into the rocks. In America's northernmost town, the sun says goodbye, and doesn't come back for over 2 months. Barrow, officially known as Utqiagvik, sits above the Arctic Circle, and every winter it slips into total darkness for around 65 days. No sunrise, no daylight, just a long, frozen night. When the sun sets in November, it doesn't just dip below the horizon, it disappears completely. The sky turns deep blue, then black, broken only by stars, the moon, and the soft glow of the northern lights. For newcomers, the endless night is surreal. Streetlights stay on all day, and time starts to feel like a suggestion rather than a schedule. The cold here is sharp and constant, with temperatures regularly below -20 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind howls in from the sea and thick ice locks up the coastline. Even during daylight months, Barrow's climate remains brutally cold, but it's the darkness that defines the town's identity. Yet Utqiagvik is no ghost town. Roughly 4,500 residents live here, many from Inupiat families who've been in the region for generations. They've built homes and communities that adapt to the rhythm of polar extremes. People go to school, work, shop, all under a sky that forgets to rise, and when the sun finally returns in late January, it's a celebration. Not just for the warmth, but for the light. It peaks above the horizon, low and golden, casting long shadows across the frozen ground. Then, each day grows longer, leading into a summer where the sun never sets at all. In Utqiagvik, the contrast between extremes isn't just a weather pattern, it's a way of life. There's hot, and then there's Death Valley hot. Tucked into eastern California, this sun-scorched basin isn't just a summer inconvenience. It holds the record for the hottest air temperature ever reliably recorded on Earth, 134 degrees Fahrenheit, measured at Furnace Creek. That's hot enough to cook eggs on the pavement and melt plastic car trim. Even on an average summer day, highs reach well above 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Death Valley sits more than 280 feet below sea level, surrounded by tall mountain ranges that trap heat like a giant natural oven. The sun beats down relentlessly, and the dry, rocky ground reflects the heat right back into the air. There's almost no humidity to soften the blow, it's just raw, unfiltered heat that seems to press down on you from all sides, and yet the landscape is stunning. Rolling sand dunes shimmer in the distance. Salt flats stretch endlessly like a frozen ocean made of white crystal. Colorful canyons and jagged rocks twist through the valley, shaped over millions of years by wind and water that rarely shows up anymore. There's even a place called Badwater Basin, the lowest point in North America. Incredibly, life still finds a way. Desert bighorn sheep navigate the cliffs, coyotes trot along the roadsides, and when a rare rainstorm hits, the valley erupts with wildflowers in what locals call a super bloom, a brief but vivid display that turns the desert floor into a living carpet. Tourists from all over the world come to experience the extremes here. Some stay just long enough to snap a photo at the Furnace Creek thermometer before rushing back to their air-conditioned cars. But for those who linger, Death Valley offers something more. The feeling of standing in a place where Earth turns up the dial and shows what it's really capable of. We've traveled through blazing deserts, freezing plains, and lightning-filled skies, but now we end in a place where the weather doesn't change, because it never has to. Welcome to Porto Lopez, a peaceful fishing town on Ecuador's Pacific coast, where seasons don't exist the way most people know them. Here, the temperature floats steadily around 77 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, all year long. No snow, no sweltering heat waves, no frost on windows or piles of fallen leaves, just a soft breeze, warm sun, and steady rhythm. Locals say time feels slower here, and it's easy to see why. Without seasons to mark the calendar, every day feels like a long, quiet weekend. This weather magic happens thanks to Porto Lopez's spot right on the equator and near the Pacific Ocean. Warm ocean currents keep the air mild, while the sea moderates the heat. Rain comes in short bursts during the wet season, but the shifts are gentle. There's no brutal summer or icy winter knocking at the door. But just because the weather is predictable doesn't mean the place is boring. Every year, humpback whales migrate just off the coast, drawing visitors from around the world. The nearby Macalilla National Park blends dry forests, coastal cliffs, and coral-filled waters. It's one of the few places where you can walk through jungle trails and then dive into crystal-clear waves within the same hour. Locals plan their lives by tides, not temperatures. There's no rush to check the forecast, it's always just nice. That consistency gives Porto Lopez its charm. It's not extreme in the way of heat records or wind speeds. Its extreme is how unchanging and peaceful it stays, in a world where weather usually takes center stage. And maybe, in the end, that's the biggest twist of all. Among the most dramatic climates on Earth, this small coastal town stands out by simply staying perfectly the same. That's about it. Which of these places would you like to visit? Let me know in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.